this a rebound, then it's driving. Tyson with the fade, not the hair, my hands rocking. When I link with ballpoint, you know it's knocking. I'm not the same. Thinking money made me change, nothing else to blame. Bougie stuck up in my way, singing Gucci gang. Gucci gang, think I'm Gucci Mane. I'm just playing in the cut, I got my Vans on. I'm not selfish, I get on to put my mans on. Always greedy since the day I got my first safe. 5'7", but I'm 6'8" when I stand on the money pals. Need a money counter, I broke my thumb from thumbing down. Wifey on my line, she told me to dumb it down. Mama on my line, asking how I'm dumbing now. I think you only love me cause I'm poppin'. This a layup, this a rebound, then it's driving. Tyson with the fade, not the hair, my hands rocking. When I link with ballpoint, you know it's knocking. Get out my way, I'm so unashamed. Throw it to my veins, like my 2K green or blue, I'm not into games. Focus on your player's face while I'm stacking change. We throw out what you got on your whole crew late. Every time I drop it, knock you make the school face. I can't stand to be around people who are two-faced. I can't stand to do some business if you're too late. I beat the beat or defeated, I beat the beat or mistreated, I beat the odds deleted. On top, I'm ODing. No rock star with these leather pants, I'm AC/DCing. When I die, I bet they love me, but hate me when I'm breathing. I think you only love me cause I'm poppin'. This a layup, this a rebound, that's rubbing. Tyson with the fade, not the hair, my hands rocking. When I link with ballpoint.
Hey, what is going on, beautiful people? I feel like I'm super loud. Hold on. Welcome back, beautiful people. It's good to see you. It's your boy Blue. Welcome back for another video, people. Hey. Hope you guys having a great day. What's up, Ron, CJ, Infinite? Good to see you, my man. Drewski, welcome back. Joska, welcome to the stream, my man. Ace, welcome back to the stream. Sim Pilot, what's up, man? Yonda Morris, Captain Mombosa, Big Mungus, what's up, man? Nexus Stars, Captain K, what's up, my brother? Good to see you, man. Ahmed Gamer, welcome to the stream. Welcome, guys. Captain Reynolds says again, thank you very much. Josva, all you guys, Ron Goldenberg. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. The music is not too loud. I feel like I came in a little hot that time. Let me turn me down a little bit. I was peeking there, but I think we're all right. We have a very exciting flight and stream today. Hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you guys are staying healthy, staying safe, keeping yourself entertained and occupied. I know a lot of you guys out there are quarantined. I'm not getting these weird flickerings. And so the world is a very weird place right now. I'm just gonna say that. Let's just go ahead and point that out from the beginning. There is no ignoring it. It's gonna come up. This is our life right now. This is what it is. But let me say this. It is Monday, and I always got some motivation for you guys. So today's motivational quote of the day to get the stream kicked off is: you are and were created on purpose for a purpose. No matter what it looks like around you, no matter how much it looks like a mistake, like it looks like an accident, that you become what you are and that you where you are, but you were actually created on purpose, and you have a purpose. You're for a purpose as well. So find out what that purpose is, find out what your passion is, and really take this time to kind of like reflect on life and figure out like what is it that you really want to do. Hopefully all this coronavirus stuff will kind of pan over in the next few weeks or month. I'm praying for that for sure. But you never know. It could be a little bit longer. It could be shorter. Either way, us as a human race, we've always strived. We always find a way to overcome. You know what I'm saying? So I'm out there. I'm definitely praying for the doctors and the people who are affected by this. But I want to go ahead and get that out of the way. But today, guys, we're sitting here at Dulles, Washington Dulles, Kilo India Alpha Delta in the sexy A321 Neo. Yeah, I'm using the A321 Neo mod. I actually had it set up Friday. Was hoping to be able to stream on Friday with this exact plane, but it was a pretty complicated installation process. but I got it done. It has some really amazing sounds, some crazy loud sounds. So definitely make sure you have your headphones on. And of course, I also had to bring in the Blue Arrow livery for. So Blue Arrow now has an A321 Neo. Matter of fact, in the description right now, if you want the livery for the Tolis A321, that's what this is based off of, the Tolis A321. I do have the livery for the base Tolis A321 as well. So if you don't have the Neo mod, then you don't need the Neo mod. But I also have a livery for both the Neo and the regular. CJ, what's up, man? Thank you for that donation, my dude. Hey, there it is. It came through. Thank you very much, my man.
Do you think MSFS 2020 will run okay on an Xbox One?
Do I think Microsoft Flight Simulator is going to run well on Xbox One? Yes, actually, I do. I mean, they wouldn't put it on there if it's not going to work. So anyways, what do you guys think of the Blue Arrow's new addition to the fleet? A321 looks sexy. Just wait till you hear her spool up. So today, we do have 2 touchdowns. We're going to try to make 2 touchdowns happen today. Starting off here in Washington, Dulles. We are on VATSIM, so if you want to join us, for those of you who may not have school today, maybe to jump into VATSIM with us. I think ATC might be online. I'm not sure. I got to double check for sure. But we'll be call signing up from 116 Bravo. First stop is Atlanta, Georgia. And then from there, we're going to Jacksonville if all goes well. So, it sounds good. What up, Alex P? Good to see you, my man. All right, let's get this thing fired up and get going, because we do have a bunch to do and plenty to talk about today. So I may not see some of your messages while I'm setting the aircraft up. So external power is first. And I'm going to turn the sounds up a little bit, because they are completely different. Even the interior sounds are different. So I do want to explain the mod I have. So I have the A321 Neo, which is a modded version of Tolis A321 and the JAR Design A321 Neo. It's like Frankensteining 2 aircraft together and making one super aircraft. It's like a super Airbus. It's basically what happened here. So that's what's happening. And then as far as the sounds, there's a guy named FT Sim, I believe. He has multiple mods actually for the A321, the A319, Flight Factor A320, and he has a Neo mod as well, or not a mod, but it is a mod, a sound pack for the Neo. And so I'm using that. I think it's the Pratt & Whitney engines. So everything should hopefully work. I did test it earlier. We'll see if it actually works. You know how it is. All right, battery's coming on, and then we'll turn on smoking signs. We'll turn on the nav light, emergency light. We're completely cold and dark. I haven't done anything at all. We'll hit the master switch for the APU. While waiting for that, we'll turn on the IR or the ADIRs to get aligned. We'll get the radios tuned on the top side. Let's go ahead and get these screens turned on. This is one part that kind of gets annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Turning the screens on, it'd be nice. I mean, there is a function in the settings for Tolis that you can set it to be at a turnaround state so that the APU is already running and the ADIR is already aligned, and that'll get you started a lot faster. But I always start holding dark for the most part. And you also actually hear some radio chatter, which is pretty cool too. Alright, let's get these middle screens turned on. I think it's going to be at the top side right here. Man, that virus is everywhere, man. It's everywhere. We'll talk about it. Alright, so starting off here in Kilo, India, Alpha Delta Lima, and then Kilo Alpha Tango Lima for our first leg. Oops. There we go. Hey, Airline IRS. Today we'll be going to 30. We'll do flight level 300 because this is still. I don't think the Neo mod actually changed the flight dynamics of the plane, so it still takes a while for it to lift off and go. You see all our screens are coming to life now, and the flap should be open, which it is. Let's take a listen to this APU spool up because it's freaking ridiculous, guys. What up, Ghost Customer? Good to see you, man. United 10, welcome to the stream. And everybody who else has joined. I believe the APU sound is still the original APU that Tolis had from Turbine sounds, but I think the original APU sounds incredible. They did a great job with that part. All right, flight plan. Okay. Oh, wait. First, we actually need to load people on here. So let's go to the menu. I'm gonna pop this out, and we're gonna go here. Tolis. My favorite menu, don't you think, guys? All right, so 224 passengers today. We have a full flight. We could go empty. We can go like realistic and be like, you know what? Because of coronavirus, we only have like 80 people on here. Let's do that. It's sad, but it's true. Flights are super empty right now. We'll do 83 passengers on there, which is like less than half full. So plenty of leg room. So if all my standby passengers, welcome. This is a perfect day for us standby passengers. Not very much cargo either. So it'll be pretty light actually. So that's gonna make things pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever flown this thing this light before. So landing is gonna be probably a float. All right. So as far as fuel, I need about 8,500 kilograms of fuel. We'll do that. And one more quick. That's close enough. Quick refuel. And then we just we need this here, 26.0 and 56.9. So put that 26, 20. Okay, I'm getting impatient. I'm double clicking things. 26.0, 0 slash. All right, maybe I'm just going too fast. 56.9er. Beautiful. Yeah, and then 8.7. is what I'm gonna be putting in for our block fuel, which is 8,700 kilograms. And now that is in. Beautiful. So now we need to go to our flight plan. So I don't know what runway we're using out here. Matter of fact, it looks like Dulles Tower is online. Let's go see if they have any ATIS or anything like that on that. So it's gonna be on 120.1. Let's put this away for a bit. Go down. Do I have a? I know I have a. Oh, here we go. 120.1. It's really interesting. Like, there's a lot more ATC out here than the usual. Schools in my area are also shut down. We had spring break last week, and then now it's like a kind of like an extended, I guess, spring break. I guess you could say.
Calling, say call sign.
Alright, I don't know what runway they're using right now.
Okay, say call. Can you put the call sign in the text there? It's hard to understand.
We're in Dallas. I believe this is. I don't know whose scenery this is. Is this default? This is default. Yeah, this is default. Yeah, I believe Canada or places in Canada were also on spring break, and they're extending spring break and suspending school for a little bit too. I don't know. Okay, looks like AI is using this way, but who knows, man? There's no ATIS online, which makes it really weird. I'm gonna go in text chat and ask what the active runway.
219 clear Southwest on 17.
On VATSIM. We can get the ATIS too. See the ATIS out here in Dallas right now is winds are 130.7.
Check the ATIS.
10 statute amount visibility, fuel at 15,000, sky at 25,000, temperature 09, dew point -1, altimeter 3052.
Royal Air Mark 219 except from a 30, but I'll give you the
Wait, 3052? That is high. Jesus.
Okay, section 30, around 219.
So what I'll do is, because he's not responding yet, we're at KIAD.
Royal Mark 7.
Nope. Alright, we are here. Winds are 15-ish something, so we're probably going to use 19. I think we'll be departing south. Let's go with that. It may change. We've already pre-filed. We haven't gotten our clearance either. I probably should go ahead and ask for clearance actually, now that I think about it. Let's do that. Let's do that first before I have to do stuff twice. Dallas Tower, November 116 Bravo, IFR to Atlanta.
November 116 Bravo, clear to the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport via the clutch to departure flash transition and south. Maintain 3000, expect flight level 300, 10 minutes on the departure. Departure frequencies on 133.32, squawk 5667.
The little kid's fast. Jesus. Alright, clear to Atlanta. Climb to 3000, expect 300, 10 minutes after. Departures on 133.76 and squawk 5667 for your November 116 Bravo. I didn't get all of that.
Bravo, readback correct. Push inside your discretion advised. So you want your emergency taxi holding short of Zulu. Expect runway 30 for departure. Also runway 30 for
Expecting runway, was that 30 for departure?
Affirmative.
Route 30 for departure. We'll let you know when we're ready for taxi. November 116 Bravo. That little kid is fast. That little kid is fast. Jesus. Man. I really had to hold on to that clearance. My God. I was listening so hard, guys. Alright, so we got our runway. Runway 3.
Mark 219, unfortunately.
Runway 30. I'm going to turn him down. His voice is very piercing. Yes. So 30 for departure, and I don't remember what our actual departure is. The clutch 2. Clutch 2 departure. Via Flask transition. And go ahead and add that. And then basically our transition is going to be also our transition to our arrival into Atlanta via the Aussie 1 arrival. What runway we'll get, I have no idea. Probably 09 or something like that. Let me see. We'll see what SimBrief gave us. We'll probably have ATC out there too, maybe, if we're lucky. 09 left. And let me see, I got a message from somebody. He just replied to me. Alright, sounds good. What did I say? Clutch? No, what was it? Aussie. Aussie is what we're looking for. No star. No, wait, that ain't right. That ain't right. Erase. I think I hit it twice. Alright, ATL, arrival, 09 left. We want... It's not in here. Oh, Aussie. Aussie 1. No via. Last. Empty. Insert. And boom. Beautimous. I like it. I like it. What up, Michael? Good to see you, man. Welcome to the stream. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, thank you. I don't think I even mentioned that. Thank you, guys. We just hit 11,000. Actually, Friday or Thursday. One of those days we hit 11,000. So thank you guys so much for helping this channel grow. Seriously, thank you guys for supporting me and everything that I do. I know everything I do is not, you know, all. I know all of you don't like everything that I do, but I appreciate the ones who do come through, and I really do. So let's go to performance. Now that we have our departure runway, we can put in our V speeds and whatnot, which are still not correct. 1 plus F. Actually, wait, whoa, look at that. Our V speeds have changed. Maybe it updated. You know what? We are super light, so that made that, I don't know. That's way different. It's still probably high for our actual weight. But anyways, we'll put it in 144. And then 144. And 147. So landing's gonna be very interesting being this light today. And then our CG 20 let's see, will be 1 flaps 1 slash up 0.3. I'll put that under flaps, THS, and then under flex tip 46. We'll probably just go toga anyways. And that's it. Next phase will be 210 for climb out. That'll be our pre-selected climb speed. And that's it. Initiation, we're checking on that. Flight number, we don't have to put one. I'll put one for the fun of it. I'll put blue. What time is it? This is what I usually do for my flight numbers. If I ever have to make a flight number, I choose the current Zulu time, which I don't even know what it is right now. What time is it? I think it's like 15. Yeah, 1528. So I'll put blue 1528 as my flight number. And wind request, we can take it. Don't need it, but we'll do it. Alright, performance initiation page is good. Our flight plan looks todo bene. And that's it. We can do a secondary flight plan if we want it. I'm not going to worry about it today. Radiate, all that stuff, don't need that. So we're good. Let's go get going. We'll close that. APU is not completely running. APU bleed coming on. Pro B coming on for the windows. We'll turn on the pumps and get ready to push back. Find out where the heck runway 30 is. Okay, there it is right there. So we'll push back. Nose to the left. Take Charlie, most likely to Yankee. Something. We'll get something like that. Let's go ahead and put in our departure as well down here for our charts, which is the clutch 1, 2. I guess it's the clutch 2 R now. I'm the Will. What's up, man? Good to see you. It has been a while. Good to see you, bro. Welcome to the stream, my dude. Man, frames. What's going on with that? What is going on with that? That is not okay. Not okay. Let's go ahead and just adjust just in case. I don't want to have frame issues. I'm going to turn it off. Just so you guys know, this is my settings right here. You guys always ask, what are your graphic settings? There it is. You got 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm just turning it off, draw shadows. That's going to probably give me like 10 frames. So just so you guys know, if you're ever struggling with like frames, turn off draw shadows. Who is that? Never again. The donation. Congratulations on 11.
A321 Neo.
Yes, sir. And the beautiful A321 Neo. Appreciate that very much, my dude. Thank you very much for the donation and the support. Thank you, man. That means a lot. Justin, what's up, man? Welcome back, man. The long time. I haven't seen this dude in forever. I'm glad he's still alive. It's probably been like a year, man, since you've been around. So I know you've been busy, probably doing school or sports or whatever. You know what I mean? You know, life happens. I never get upset when people stop showing up. You know, because this is a gaming community, and gaming is not the most important thing in life usually. Usually there's other things you got to work on and focus on, so I'm all good with that. But I appreciate that, man. Good to see you, Justin. I guess you made it back because school is closed out there in New York today. Speaking of New York, man, I think I mentioned this last week, but the prices right now in New York City are crazy low. Or I should say the prices of flights to New York City are crazy low. But it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Why? Hopefully this doesn't take too long to freaking reload. All I'm doing is changing my graphic settings a little bit. Yeah, man, I heard KLM retired their 747, or they're retiring their 747. I believe I saw something where they're going to be doing, like officially retiring it sometime at the end of March, early April. So definitely be sad to see the iconic KLM 747. Listen to the plane flying in the background. He's probably like 1,000 feet up. I live right down the street from a small general aviation airport. A lot of flight schools, like it's like tens, like probably 20 flight schools at that airport. Lots of private jets. So ever since all this stuff has been going on, even though like international and domestic travel has gone down, a lot of people who are out there trying to get their flight, their license and do general aviation flights, those are like booming. There's a lot of stuff going on there. All right, we're back. Let's check our frames. We didn't get 10, but we got enough. That works. It'll probably get better. All right, we're ready to push, guys. Let's go get our handy dandy better push back.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
I want to go to the left. Is that izquierda or derecha? I always forget. Anybody speak Spanish in here can remind me which one is left, which one is right. Like I've practiced it so much and I can never freaking remember which one is left and which one is right.
Ground to cockpit.
All right.
Tow is driving up.
Ground handling. We're gonna hide them because right now they don't move correctly. Let's see. We can turn the seatbelt signs on. The pumps are on. Radios are on. Iris is aligned. We got anti-ice is required. Don't need it. And we can turn the beacon light on. We can go ahead and I'll wait till old dude comes up here and we'll let the jetway go. Let's go ahead and close the doors though. You don't have a view of something somewhere. No, that's not it. I thought I had a view of my right side doors, but I don't. I'm telling you, this 321 Neo is just wait till you hear this thing, the sound, guys. Yes. chills is all I'm gonna say. I don't want to ruin it.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
There's got to be a new Tolis. You probably don't watch this, but if you ever did, or somebody tell Tolis, can you add a button where it says close all doors? Take a note from Flight Factor. They do that. All right, look at that. Let's get a screenshot. That's beautiful. That's just beautiful. Just beautiful. Now I want to give a big shout out to all livery makers and paint. Yeah, all of you guys who do the repaints. Shout out to you guys. Respect. It took me way too long to make this livery. It's super simple looking, right? It's very simple, but it took me way too long. Way too long. Alright, that jetway should start moving back. I think it's trying to.
So connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Beacon lights coming on. We can turn off external power. We're gonna be on APU solo. And there goes the jetway now. Hold on. Alright, we can push back. Did he say push back at our discretion? I think he did. I'm assuming he did. Usually it's that way. Actually, it disconnected me when we were reloading. Let me get back on. I'm going to go ahead and ask just in case. My call sign is November 116 Bravo. Let me make sure we're online, and I'm going to hit this guy up and see if we do have clearance to push back. I think he said at pilot's discretion. Usually it is. Matter of fact, I think there's a non-movement line area over there. Yeah, there is. So we can push back. Alright. Park brake released. Let's go.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Yes, I am using SAM. Oh, nice. What's up, X-Plane Ation? Welcome, man. You're the controller at IAD. Are you the tower, or are you the are you DC Center? I believe DC Center is or was on as well. Yeah, IAD and DC. DC's on 133725. Actually, I read back the wrong frequency. All right, let's get this thing started. Headphones on, guys. Headphones on. Beacon is on. That's on. This is on. That's on. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna be starting engine number. I didn't do my. Hold on. What's my squad code? 5667. All right. Okay. I'm gonna do from exterior. Yeah, let's do exterior view for the engine start. Starting engine 1. Yeah, it sounds nice. It sounds nice. Maybe a little bit exaggerated, but it sounds nice. All right, let's check out the PTU though. Wait for it. Starting engine 2. Oh, the barking dog. Oh, takeoff's gonna be ridiculous, guys. Just wait. It's gonna be ridiculous, man. It's quieter inside as it should be. Like, you really can only hear with you have headphones.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Park brake set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
I know it's something so like unique, man, about the whole barking dog, the PTU thing. It's really crazy. At first, I remember when the first time I was on an Airbus in real life, I was like, what the heck is that? What is that noise? Alright, now for the flaps. A little, it's the timing is a little off from the animation. Again, this is a mod, so it's not gonna be perfect, but the timing is a little off. Like the sound keeps going even when the flaps actually stop. Another thing is I was in a real A321 a few weeks ago with Spirit, and from the inside, like I was sitting right at like the seat behind this one, and you really can't hear it that loud. Honestly, the original flap sound is a bit more realistic than this is, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of these sounds, they make it kind of more immersive, but it is a little bit exaggerated. I'm just gonna be honest, it is a little bit exaggerated. Steve Mitchell, what's up, man? Thank you for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family. Let's get our clearance, get the heck out of here. Taxi lights coming on, runway turnoff lights coming on. Let's get our clearance with IAD Tower. We do need to check our flight controls too. And he gave us 3,000. We put 3,000 right there. And Dallas Tower, November 116 Bravo, ready to taxi. I don't know what the weather is. No
November
idea.
116 Bravo, runway 30, taxi by Zulu Yankee 11.
30 Zulu Yankee 11. 16 Bravo.
Air Canada 342.
Alright, where the heck is that? So Zulu is the first taxiway. All the way down to this like angled one, so we make a left. Yeah. All right, park and brake released. AQ coming off.
Thanks 330, Air Canada 2 breaking.
I don't know what this flickering is happening. Checking the flight controls or we're taxiing. Yeah, guys, it's loud. It's gonna get loud in here. So if you don't like ear rape, turn to the next channel. All right, making a left on Zulu. That'll be right here. We got an Embraer, United Embraer right ahead of us. We are using Traffic Global. I think I'm about 2 versions behind on Traffic Global. Can I pop this back up? All right, cool. Because I personally have trouble updating Traffic Global because I don't have a ton of space on my computer, and I have it kind of rigged to think I have more space than I actually do. I also have my Traffic Global modded as well. I have a lot of replacement airlines because Traffic Global itself is actually missing a lot of like specific liveries and stuff like that. So there's on the forums you can actually download replacement I guess liveries and stuff like that to fill out your Traffic Global, so that there's certain places you'll fly in where you'll actually see the right airlines, the right everything. You see we have traffic landing right there as well. Next generation flights, what's up, man? Good to see you. Sounds like a washing machine. Will I miss the A380 when it retires? Honestly, no, I won't. I've never been a fan of A380s. Q, this is the Tolis A321, but it's modded to be an A321 Neo. So this is not the default A321 Neo. In cash, I also love the barking dog as well. Nice. United 10, you also live in Houston? Yeah, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about kind of how the coronavirus has been affecting us down here, where I live at, once we take off. Our first leg is going to be about an hour. There's Yankee 11. I think this is it right here. Yeah, this is Yankee 11. Actually, goes to the left. I'm open to the idea of shared cockpit. It's kind of challenging, honestly. We would need to do a test offline first. I don't want to be troubleshooting on a live stream. So if I were to do shared cockpit, we'd have to do it offline. It's also another thing I honestly don't like about what's currently available for shared cockpit is I don't like how you got to have like the exact same everything. Like you have to have the same mesh for your scenery, the same plane, like everything. And that's where I have a struggle because I have a lot of extra scenery, a lot of, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So it's kind of a hassle at the moment. I'm kind of waiting for FlyJSim to come out with their shared cockpit thing. All right, let's get ready for takeoff. Beacon lights are on. What am I forgetting, guys? Departures. What is our departure frequency?
Number 1 is probably ready.
Standby once it's dropped. 133725. Oops. So let's get that on here. 133725. There it is. And now we're ready. Yeah, we're ready. Oh shoot, did I switch over? Whoops. That's a habit. My bad. Is that the right frequency? Was it once? Yeah. All right, we're ready. Alright, Dallas Tower, November 116 Bravo. We're here at Yankee 1130, ready to go.
November 16 Bravo, wind 130 at 7, runway 30, clear for takeoff, fly heading 280.
Clear takeoff runway 30, heading 280, November 116 Bravo. Alright guys, we're trying to go. Headphones on, land lights on, parking brakes released. Oops, too many clicks. Wing light on. Alright, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit and I'm gonna shut up. Turn up and shut up, guys. Check to the left. Clear. Clear.
AGN 602, turn right heading 245 degrees, report localized to establish 27 match.
Alright guys, can you say toga? Manual toga. Oh shoot. He said 280. Where the heck am I going?
Number 116 Bravo, connect departure.
16 Bravo connecting departure. Departure November 16 Bravo, climbing 4,000, heading 280.
November 16 Bravo, Washington Center, to contact, climb, maintain, level 300.
Flying 300 on 16 Bravo.
Make 1963 heavy, red contact, altitude leaving 2,400 on the way to 5,000. Make 1963, climb, maintain, level 280. Climb and maintain 280, American 1963. Franklin, the 342 Lima Airspace, New York Center, soft flying, frequency change approved. Frequency change approved, connect.
Alright, autopilot on. Oh, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Alright, let me turn it down. I think you guys got the point. He didn't give us a new heading. First of all, I did a few things wrong. They only cleared me to 3,000 feet. I went to 4,000. He told me to go climb. He told me to depart heading 280, and I went way past that. So I made a couple mistakes in the departure, but you know they didn't scream at me, thankfully. I guess I didn't piss them off too bad. I didn't turn the smoking signs on for some reason. He did clear us at 300 though. Let me see if we can get a direct to Butcher.
Number 116 Bravo, proceed at clutch, resume the clutch to departure.
What was that direct again for 16 Bravo?
Direct clutch.
Klutz. Direct to Klutz for 16 Bravo. Where the heck is that? Is that on my? I was gonna assume that's to the left, so we're gonna turn left.
Number 5-3-01 Sergio, ready to go?
Might be this here. Oh, he said clutch. Alright, we'll go direct to clutch.
Okay, American 105, wind 1006, runway 1 clear for takeoff.
And then a continued departure is what he said. Alright, that should be activated. And it is. Alright, we're at 9,000, climbing at 238. Flaps are up. We'll wait a second to let the landing lights off. Beautiful trees down there. You can see the winter colors, kind of like a fall look, kind of brown. It looks really nice. I got ortho out here. Nice ortho out here. Look at that massive plane. That's hilarious. I love seeing that. I think that's so funny. I think that is so funny. Not too bad out here. Where we at again? DC? Alright, there's 10,000 feet. Landing light's coming off. And runway turn offs go off. Taxi takeoff. Off. Wing light off. We'll leave the seatbelt signs on for now unless we have some crazy something, you know. I'll go ahead and hit that button right there. And we'll continue. I'll do manual speed because, as you guys know, the A321 has been out for a few weeks now, but most people are climbing in this mode because the auto, like the vertical VNAV or whatever, has you flying at like max speed, which will make you take off super slow, or so I should say climb very slowly. So it will take us forever to get to 30,000 feet. There's another reason why I'm only going to 30,000 feet anyways, was because I want to make sure we can get to our cruise a bit sooner than later. Alright, cool. Alright, what did I miss in chat, guys? Sorry, I've been handling the plane. I think it sounds pretty cool though. It's definitely loud, and I think it's exaggerated. As I said earlier, it's kind of exaggerated. If you were actually inside the aircraft, it wouldn't be as loud as you're hearing it here. But I think it kind of accentuates those sounds. And I also think these engines are freaking massive. Like, I think it looks better. Turn it down some more. I have to turn it way down. Jeez. I think it looks better on the 21. You could also do this exact same mod on the 19. You could have an A319 Neo. You could also do an A320 Neo if you use a flight factor A320. But that being said, I think it looks best on the 21. I think the size of the engines, it kind of works with the length of the fuselage on the 21 better than the 19 and the 20. It kind of like when you do the 19, it looks like it's carrying these massive sandbags. It looks really weird and awkward in my opinion. I'm just not a fan. That's why I never really was interested in trying to mod for the Neo for the 19. But when I got the 21, I saw somebody do a video on it and I was like, I gotta have it. I'm sold. Like, it sounded good. I was like, yeah, you got me. The engines look sexy. Like, it's dope. Do I like Qatar? Yeah, I like Qatar Airlines. Do I have the CRJ200? Yes, I do have it, and I do actually like it. Some people don't. I do. I've put a lot of hours in it. I've used it for some not virtual, but some like airline operation type stuff before, and I actually really enjoy the CRJ200. It's very tricky to land, though. That's for sure. I tend to bounce it or stall it quite a lot. Also, if you just joined in, we got a brand new Blue Arrow livery on this 21 Neo. That's a nice screenshot. Uh-oh, it froze. I'm the Will. We are headed to Atlanta first, and if we have time, we will continue to Jacksonville, Florida after that. That is the plan at the moment. Is the pitch a little steep? Let's see, we're climbing at 2,200 feet, passing 18,000. Standard.
United for heavy with you, flight level 350.
If I have raised the speed, yeah, if I do like at least like 255, maybe let's do 255 knots. It'll bring the nose down a little bit. We were a little steep, you're right. Thanks for calling that out, Nicholas. Oh, no, who was that? That was MFD. No, who was that actually? That was Rose. Thank you for calling that out for me. I do not have the Qatar A350. Oh, nice. MFD, you really like Singapore Airlines and you flew with them and they actually premiered your trip report. That's dope. That's pretty cool, man.
Position check. Thank you, sir.
8:55 in Vancouver. What's up, man? Welcome and have an amazing spring break and stay healthy and don't go out. Stay away from people. Just kidding. Don't be afraid, but you know, just be smart, guys. Oh, nice. You're flying DCA to Boston. Very cool. JetBlue 1354. I'll be looking out for you. I might have heard you on frequency. Yeah, you're not too far out. We're probably on the same frequency right now. I'm on DC Center as well. We're also using X Enviro Clouds. Just my preference right now when it comes to weather on X-Plane until we get Microsoft Flight Simulator. I was really bummed we didn't get that new video last Thursday/Friday. So I gotta wait another week to hear an update. Like, the screenshots are good. You know, they get me a little bit excited, but the videos would really give you information. And that's what I was looking forward to, was another video about, I think they're talking about multiplayer, so I'm really interested to see how Microsoft Flight Simulator handles multiplayer in this next generation Flight Simulator. Vancouver has 40 cases. Jeez. Yes, I live in Texas right now. It is 10:57 a.m. Whitehorn doing a flight from Toronto to Dallas, Air Canada 2134. Sounds cool, man. Have a good flight, my dude. Have a good flight. Anybody that I missed, I'm sorry. If you sent me a message earlier and I didn't reply because I was either flying or setting up the plane, go ahead and resend that now. I'll give you permission to resend that message, and I'll try to do my best to reply to you, answer your question, whatever you guys may have, whatever's on your mind. But as we, do I mind pressing the engine fire test button? That sounds like a trap. That's something we should have done before we started, so I'm gonna pass on that. Maybe between flights, before our second leg, maybe I'll test the fire test. I don't think it may not do anything right now, but I just don't wanna ruin anything. Everything's running pretty smooth right now. I don't wanna jinx it, but I'm just saying it's been going well, and I don't wanna screw anything up. Oh my God, he says the coronavirus is an American weapon to destroy China's economy. Sure. I don't think we're that smart. Rose, yes, it does look very nice. Matter of fact, JetBlue looks really nice as the A321 Neo as well. I have that too, but I had to promote my livery. I couldn't help it. I've been needing to make an A3. I've been needing to make an Airbus livery for a while. I have the Zebo 737 Blue Arrow, but I don't have that.
Juliet, cross runway 4. Juliet, cross runway 4, go to runway 1 for American 23.
Uh-oh, what'd I do?
Spirit Wing 717, you up?
Alright, how are we looking? Alright, so we're almost to our top of climb.
Spirit Wing 717.
Our new
717 on
vertical speed right now is 1,700 feet per minute.
3675, Spirit Wing 717.
And right now going Mach 0.618. And while we have a little bit of a rest period, we can go ahead and get our arrival ready into Atlanta today.
Number 717 to contact or which town do you are?
Jack, yes. From time to time, I do fly some of the bigger aircraft. I fly the 777, 747. I don't fly the A340. I do fly the A330. I don't fly A380. I don't have an A350, so I don't fly that right now either. I think we're going to use this one. It is not a 32-bit livery. Good morning, Loadmaster. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Matter of fact, let's get some. It's not a very long flight, but I will get a little bit of en route jams to go in the background while we're cruising. Some good vibes, guys. Good vibes only. Alright, that's our arrival. Oh, look at that. Is that a contrail or something? In the top right of the screen. Approach. We don't know if we can get 09. We really don't know. We probably should just wait to pick that up. So let's just stick with the arrival for now. Samuel Montoya, good to see you. Welcome. Long time no see, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see what kind of jams I got for you guys today. So what do you guys, actually before we talk about that, so here in Houston, so this is where I live in Houston, Texas. There has been some cases. I don't know how many, honestly. I haven't been keeping like close track, but I have been hearing about a lot of the cases. But we did have some cases just north of Houston. I don't know if we have any in the city of Houston or not, but we've had some. And so since then, I think the craziest part to me, because first of all, it's kind of surreal, guys. It's kind of like you don't really believe it's happening. You hear about all this crazy stuff going around the rest of the world, and then, but you know, because it's so far away, you feel like it doesn't really relate to you all that much, right? But there's a fly, freaking fly. Where are these things coming from? But when it comes here, it's like, man, dang. And so the biggest thing right now is there's like the stores are like empty. It's nuts, man. Like people are buying up everything. Me and my wife went to the store on Saturday and on Sunday. Not really to like stock up or anything. We went for groceries, like regular, everyday, not every day, but like weekly groceries. What we went up there for. But a lot of the stuff that we wanted to get were not available. Thankfully, there's an HEB that we have here, like it's our grocery store nearby. They had plenty of meat, so we got plenty of meat in the fridge now to cook and all that kind of stuff in the freezer. One thing we didn't have was eggs, and there's no eggs anywhere. I didn't see any eggs. There's no milk. There's no rice. Hilarious that there's no rice, like none. The shelves are empty of rice. No cereal either, not one. I did actually get to steal some Cheerios, but there's not one Frosted Flake box.
Any chance we can go direct?
Freaking crazy, man. It's just, I don't know. It's like surreal, guys. It kind of feels like the Fear of the Walking Dead. You ever watch that series? Like where it's like the outbreak is just starting, and like a lot of people don't completely believe it. People think it's stupid, right? That's kind of like me. I feel like that person. I'm like that person's like, it's, you know, it's happening, but it's not that big of a deal, right? It's, you know, I'm whatever. I'm gonna go on with my life. That's kind of how I felt. But as it kind of grows, as it kind of gets bigger, as people start becoming more affected, as it starts to hit home, I'm like, oh crap, like this is actually happening. Like we don't have any toilet paper at the store. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like everything is shutting down. Formula One canceled their event. NASCAR canceled their next like 5-6 events. So it's nuts, man. It's kind of hard to believe that it's all going on. Thankfully, right now I think I'm okay. As long as they don't start saying that these people are coming back to life as zombies. If that starts happening, then I'm a freak out. All right. That's when I'm probably gonna freak out, because I'm trained for a zombie apocalypse. But for people to just start dropping dead, I'm not trained for that. I'm not trained for that. But it's crazy. It's again, it's surreal. I still don't believe that it's happening. That's going on. I'm hoping and praying that the doctors are finding how to solve it, so we can right now we're working on containing it and keeping people from spreading it, which is good. And I think it is good that a lot of these events are stopping and canceling to do the contain it thing, because if everything kept going on, it would have spread a lot quicker, because it's already spreading. Like I don't know how, like mainly through travel, through planes, like this plane flying from one place to another. Mainly that's the way that people are getting it seems like. But yeah, United says HEB by you was empty, so you had to use Amazon. Wow. Yeah, I don't know what day you went, but I went on Saturday evening to the grocery store, and it was a lot of certain things, not everything. They had a lot of stuff, but certain things like essential type stuff were definitely like empty. And they also changed their hours so they can give their staff more time to restock the shelves. But I came back the next day, and I came earlier in the day, and there's a lot more options for me to buy things. So I definitely recommend, if you do need to go to the grocery store, try going earlier in the morning when they first open, and you have a better chance of getting some of the newer stuff they're putting on the shelf. When am I gonna fly the Blue Arrow CRJ again? That's a great question. I don't know, man. I don't know. Daniel, what's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. What do you think is your best plane? Like, I'm best at landing it? The Cessna 172. But my favorite plane, on X-plane? That's a good question. That's a good question, sir. I don't know, man. I don't think I have a favorite. I really like the Zibo 737. It's an all-around amazing plane. I love the sounds. I love the texturing is default, but for the most part, it's default. Yeah, I think Zibo, honestly. Like, Zibo, you can't go wrong. There's something for everybody on Zibo. Like, I know it doesn't have a custom FMC or anything like that yet, but it's pretty darn good. I want to go to Sun and Fun Simpilot. I don't know if they're even having it anymore, so we'll see. We shall see. Free Jolito, what's up, my man? Hold on, we're going to Atlanta, Georgia right now. That's where we're headed right now.
755, game airspace, Atlanta Center and South.
Daniel, just bought the A321 yourself and you love it. Yeah, man, I think that it's gonna be, you're not gonna regret buying the A321, guys. You're not. Like, if you don't get it, you may not miss it, honestly. Like, I think that's kind of how it is. It's kind of like one of those planes. It's like, hey, if you're not that interested in the A321, you'll be all right. There's plenty of other options out there. But if you do end up getting it, whether you buy it full price or for sale, you're gonna be like, yeah, I love this plane. You're gonna fly it a lot. I mean, I've been flying it nonstop since I got it. I had to do a review for it, so that's one reason I flew it so much. But I just enjoy it. There's some planes that I review that I will fly and then not forget, but I'll fly it a bunch for like a week or two as I'm reviewing it, and then I really fly it that much anymore. And there's some other planes where I'll fly it and then I'll fly a lot more even after I review it. So this is one of those planes that I actually enjoy enough to fly or review it and then continue flying it. I don't know if we'll fly it. This may be my last time flying it for a while, because I want to give the Airbus a break. We've been doing Airbus for like a month straight. We'll probably hop back on the 737 or the 727 or both. And I've also been kind of thinking about flying a 757 too. So that's the thing. That's great. That's great. He says, I like this. This is good news. This is good news. Samuel Montoya says, here in Colombia, some infected people are beginning to recover, which gives us a little more hope that everything will be fine. That's great. You know me, guys. I like being positive. I like seeing the bright side of things. And this is one reason I don't really watch the news, because the news, they really flaunt and show off and broadcast all the negative sides of things, all the things that are canceling, all the things that they're taking away from us, all the people who are being infected, all the rising number of people who are dying, which is good. They're informing us that. That's great. But I don't think it's a good idea to just like dwell on that and just like ponder on that for too long, because that'll get you depressed, it'll get you scared, it'll get you fearful, you know what I mean? And so hearing good positive stories that are talking about people who are coming up from it, who are living, right? Like, okay, this is how many people who have died from it, but how many people who actually live from it? It might be a lower number, I don't know, but it's good to know that it is possible to overcome it, to beat it. So yeah, I don't know, I like, thank you for sharing that with us, my man. Because it could be, I mean, it could be like the flu season. You know, like whenever everybody's supposed to get in the flu, like we don't all start worrying that everybody's gonna die. We do try to stay away from people who are coughing in flu season, because we don't want to get sick. Sick is not fun in general. Who wants to be sick? Nobody wants to be sick. What is on top of the sand? Not for a while. But nobody wants to be sick. But it passes. Eventually, everybody gets healthy again, you know. So hopefully this will pass like a very extreme flu, you know, that might take a few lives. I'm hoping it doesn't take too many people's lives. We don't want anybody to die. I really don't. Like, it's people's family members. And whenever I think about like my wife dying, my mom dying, people like that, like people who are close to me. So that's how serious it is, and it can be. But I'm hoping it doesn't get that far. Is Nightbot in the building? Yes, I recommend you buy the A321. I do. You won't regret it. Do I like the Neo better than the IAE? Great question. I really haven't compared it. I really haven't. I like the engines better, personally, but I don't know. Anthony, what's up, my man from Australia? Lex, yes, I have flown to Jamaica before, and I think we should fly there again. Let me catch up on some of these chats, guys. I know I've been kind of jumping around. That's one thing I hate the most, guys, is when if I go to somebody's live stream and I don't get like recognition. Not saying you gotta shout me out. I just want you to answer my question. I hate that. It's a big pet peeve of mine when I go to people's live stream. So if any of you guys actually stream out there, and try to do your best. It's kind of hard the more people that are in the chat, but try to answer everybody's questions. Take your time. All right, we will do a cabin tour. Give me just a little bit to catch up on some of this. Andy Tucker, I have some problems with the Zebo when I land and the plane makes a right roll and we crash. Do you have any suggestions? Ooh, I don't know. Can you guys help him out with that? I have not had that issue. P.S. What's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream, my dude. My favorite airport to fly into, an XP11. Oh, that's hard. That's hard. Let's go ahead and exclude my home airport because that's not fair. Somebody has an open mic on chat. Let's go ahead and turn those guys down. Coughing on the mic. Let me come back to that, Patrick. Let me come back to that. What is my best payware plane? Ooh, you guys are really hitting me with these hard questions today. Jesus. I don't know. Let me take a look. Let me look at my list. I have a list. I have a list where I've tried to rate every plane that I own.
2000 lower 330.
It's a growing list. Where is it?
There
it is. Best payware plane, hot start TBM. Boom, that's an easy one. I have to look at the list, but it's not an airline, but it's GA. But in my opinion, still, hot start TBM is still the best payware plane that exists right now for XP11. I'm gonna come back to the airport question though. Just give me a bit.
17, hold for release. Roger, we're clear to Boston and filed, maintain 3000, expect 170, 120 minutes at departure, squawk 3617.
Should you get Rose? This is for Rose Jackson. Should you get the RTX 2080 Ti and overclock it? It depends on what you have now. If it's time for you to upgrade, make it happen. I think you should. But if you have like a 1080 Ti, I do not recommend you upgrade yet. Only recommend if you have like if you're really outdated right now. Oh snap! We got some love coming through. Nigel Palmer, thank you for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family. Thank you, my dude. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I think I caught most of you guys. Is Nightbot not here? I think he's here now. I will not be deleting this video. Oh, we got another one. Kadeen Funtame, thank you for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Royal family. Glad to have you, my brother. Glad to have you. Or sister, I don't know what you are. Loadmaster, this is an old comment, but I'm going through some old comments. You're a Polynesian islander. No one is buying spams and corned beef and ramen out in DFW area. Interesting. Yeah, I think all the spam is gone. All the canned food is gone. Everything is gone. Everything. Mayor, what's up, man? I just saw your comment. Shot Kev, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Let's go to a different view. Oh, cabin tour. Let's do cabin tour. Time to check out the cabin. Let me turn off this. And I'm just going to make a little right. I think we have a little bit of time before our top of the descent.
Washington Center, good morning, American 2189.
Alright guys, welcome to the Blue Arrow. I call it the Royal Comfort Cabin. Yeah, can I open the door? I can, because I'm a horrible pilot. Alright, as you'll see, everything is in Blue Arrow colors as you come through the kitchen area. Wi-Fi is always free on Blue Arrow. And so is, everybody gets basically the first class treatment because everybody gets chocolate chip cookies. Hot, fresh chocolate chip cookies. Check it out. So I think I might do a little bit, I might change this to white or a different color. I don't like, it kind of blends in too much. I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna leave this exactly as is. Was kind of in a hurry to get the cabin done. You'll see over here we got the big Blue Arrow. Actually, I haven't even looked at that, matter of fact. This is my first time seeing that part of it. But pretty cool. You can see got that in the front. Very nice. This is cool. This is one thing I really do like when I mentioned in my review how like the cabin is not like super crisp, like it's decent, but I do like the fact that you can actually come in here and customize it like the Zevo one. I think it adds a lot. I have another livery for Austrian Airlines, I think is what it's called, and they have a really nice cabin. Aer Lingus, the Aer Lingus livery also has a very nice cabin as well, like with a custom seats and stuff like that, so it's really nice. So it's all just kind of step and repeat. It's duplicated all the way to the back. We're gonna have to walk all the way back there. We'll take a look at the right wing view as we come out.
2186 copy.
What up, Anthony? Good to see you, man. Nightbot has the wrong route. I'm sorry, guys. That is not the correct route. That is from. That was old. I didn't update Nightbot today.
We'll call you for push and start in 5.
I can know that. I can do it now. AES Gaming, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. Let's see, how much longer do we have in this leg today? We have, wow, really? 53 minutes, apparently. That sounds longer than it should be. Andy Tucker, what's up, dude? Welcome, man. Thank you for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family. Take a look at the right wing. Nice, overcast day today. Alright, back to the cockpit. But yep, that's what it is, guys. But yeah, it took me way longer than it should have to put together this livery. Let's shut that door, actually. I don't want anybody in my business. That's the right button. There it is. There we go. Alright, we'll turn the seatbelt signs off, though, for you guys. There he is. X-Plane 1972, what's up, my dude? Welcome, my brother. Glad for coming through. Thanks for stopping by. Susie, who is that? Pyra just took a flight in real life this morning on a Dash 8300. Nice. How was it? Was it a full flight? Was it empty? I know it's kind of a mixed thing because a lot of flights are empty, but there's a lot of people trying to get back home because a lot of countries are considering closing their borders, you know, like Canada, for example. I don't know if they've done it or not, but I know they've been thinking about closing their borders to outside people, and a lot of people in Europe have closed their borders. And what is up, Q? What up, man? Thank you for the subscription. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. If you just joined us, guys, we are flying from Washington Dulles to Atlanta, Georgia. And if we have time, we will continue to Jacksonville for a second leg. We're flying the Tolis A321 modded and Frankenstein together with the Jar Design A320neo to make an A321neo. Also using the, I think his name is FT Flight sound pack for the neo as well. It all sounds pretty amazing. It looks amazing. These engines are freaking massive. Look how big it is in like comparison to the fuselage. Like it's almost the same size. Almost. Mayor, what's up, man? Doing a flight from Madrid to New York. Very long. Very long. How long is that gonna take? Like 8 hours. Everything about aviation. Welcome to the stream as well, man. Good to see you. Is the 32-bit livery the same as the 4K one? I don't know. I don't know. I think if you choose the what they call standard edition, the version of like Totalus, I don't think the livery changes. I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about that. But I think that it's just like the other details in the plane. The quality of it are lower. Like the cockpit textures are lowered. The wing textures are lowered. Like the base texture of the plane are lower. Wow, AES Gaming, he's from the Czech Republic, and you and your parents are in Florida, and they canceled the flight. Man, well, I mean, that's not a horrible place to be stuck. Florida, it's not the worst place you could be stuck, but yeah, I get it. It's no place like home, even if you're in paradise. Guacharaco Miguel, hello from Colombia. What's up, man? Good to see you. Matter of fact, I think this is the best time than ever to do some shout outs, guys. If you are watching right now, if you hear my voice, come through chat, leave me an emoji, and let me know where you're watching from. I'm gonna turn the music up. We're gonna jam out, and I want to know where you're watching from and what you got going on today. Hit me up. You're now listening to Blue Arrow Radio on FM 116. All right, let's see who we got. We got Aviation 20 from Scotland, MFD. What up, man? Good to see you. Ahmed the Gamer, Charlie, MFD from the Netherlands, Big Mungus, Bermuda in the building. What's up, man? He's York, USA, watching from Pennsylvania. Good to see you, my dude. Mayor from New York, PS from Norway. What's up, man? Good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you guys aboard. Lex from the land of wood and water, Jamaica. What's up, my brother? welcome. Infinite Leon from Singapore as usual. Thank you, man. Rose Jackson, hey, from New Zealand, Wellington, the capital. Oh, that's a beautiful place. Invite me. Let me come. Let me stay over for a week. Okay, maybe a couple days. Aviation 20 from Glasgow, Scotland. Oh, yeah. Ferrying fans. What's up, man? Good to see you, man. Mio from Finland. What's up? AES from Naples, Florida. Daniel Stenner. Hello from Denmark. Welcome to the stream, man. Ferrying fans. Greetings from Hong Kong, man. Stay safe out there. Monkey Boss 234 from Bermuda. What's up, my dude? Very, very nice. FOB Ryan from Las Vegas. Mike and Ike. I'm just kidding. Mike and Mike. That's hilarious. I love that name, Mike and Mike. You like Mike and Ike? From Holland. Welcome to the stream. XD Never Again from Philly. Philly. Patrick's from Patrick from Slovakia, country of drugs. Okay, I haven't heard that one. Captain K from Jamaica. Chrisser from Helsinki, Finland. What's up? Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you. Marshall, when are we going to Trinidad? When you invite us, my brother. I would love to come to Trinidad. Aviation 20, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. How are you? Did I miss anybody? I look like that guy from The Wire. Send me a picture. I have no idea who you're referring to. Loadmaster from Dallas, Fort Worth, checking in. What's up, man? What's up, man? You dare me to shut my engine and turn it back on. Not today. Not today, Satan. Marshall from Queens. Nick from Singapore. What's up, man? Ramon, what's up? Good to see you. Ahmed from Doha. How do you play VATSIM? You sign in, you connect. Go to vatsim.net, I believe. You can sign up. Alright, let's turn the music down a little bit. I can barely hear myself. And don't let me forget, I did turn X plane down. A little bit more. The Wire. I should Google that. I'm gonna Google it. What the heck is The Wire? He better not be some ugly looking dude. Should I just search The Wire black guy? Okay, I see two different people. I don't know which one you're talking about. What song is that? That song is called Stand By. What song was that? That song was called Come Together. By who? I don't actually know. Oh, by OOYY. That's how you spell the name. OOYY. The song's called Come Together. I used that song in the my A321 review recently. It's very hard, guys, to find songs for videos, especially when you make a lot of videos and you want to use different songs for every video. It's very tough to find enough songs for your videos. Are we still in DC Center area, or do we need to switch to Atlanta? Let me check, because I wasn't really listening. So I would not be surprised if you like tried to tell me to switch. Let's go ahead and check on our flight before anything goes wrong. We might end up only doing one flight today, guys. Taking a little bit longer than I expected. Alright, so no. Actually, yeah, we're leaving DC. DC's airspace, and Atlanta Center is now off. So this is why I don't chase ATC, because you never know when they're gonna sign off. They were on like all morning, and now they're gone. Poof, peace. Houston Center was on as well, and I think Memphis Tower, or no, Memphis Approach and DFW Center, Albuquerque Center is on. So like, it's crazy. Like, usually at this time of day, most people are at work or at school, so you don't see as much ATC. Casper, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Blue Arrow family. Shout out to everybody watching on Twitch and on YouTube, guys. Thank you again, guys, for 11,000 freaking subscribers. That's a lot. That's a lot of people in one room. Like, I'm very thankful for that. Very thankful. I do not take that for granted. Just want you guys to know that. Casper, what's up, man? Good to see you. How are you doing? How are you? Hello from Lauren Jackson. Hello from New Zealand Christchurch. Man, dope. Are you New Zealand? What are you guys doing awake? But thank you. I'm glad you guys are here, and it means a lot that you guys would decide to spend a few minutes or hours with me, watching me fly a virtual plane. It still blows my mind, but I appreciate it. Do I have a view? Let me get a view. I'm sorry, I keep going between views. I can't decide. Don't crash. Don't crash. Oh wait, it didn't crash. I like this view because this is the view I usually see when boarding a plane. And this is what I was looking for. Nick Lim. Wait, what did you say? Cresser from Finland. I don't know if I shouted you out. I think I did. Yeah, I did. I went too far back. David, yes, VATSIM works on PC. Sorry if I didn't answer that question. Ahmed PS Egypt, what's up, man? Jorge, what up, man? You're watching until boarding begins. Flying today in an ERJ 195 Azul area. Okay, cool. I don't know what the rest of that means, but very cool. XP11 does support multiplayer if you are using VATSIM or Pilotage or IVAO or some of these different third-party multiplayer networks. So X-Plane does not natively support multiplayer. That should answer your question if you're still here. Have I seen the new Caribbean Airlines livery? No, I haven't. I have to check it out. I'm gonna search it right now because we're cruising and there ain't nothing else to do. Caribbean Airlines. I know I flew the Caribbean Airlines livery in the 737 a while back to Princess Juliana. Y'all should check out that flight. Nick Lim says abandon XP11 and go to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 when it comes out. I'm probably not gonna abandon X-Plane, but I will definitely go to Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Transfer aircraft washer center stand closed. All aircraft will continue to count 1 TB behind.
Daniel, how many minutes until landing? We have 39. 39er. I think we're going a little bit slow. I think we maybe, I don't know what's hurting my frames, but something's hurting my frames. Jack Cross for the follow. What's up, man? Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Royal family. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy out there, staying positive out there. Yeah, it's true. Corona is the reason all this ATC is on right now. So DC did just sign off. So we're gonna go back to Unicom. And Atlanta Center is not on, so. Uh-oh. There it is, 1228. And back outside. You have another one? I have that one. I have that one. I have that one. I have that one. Huh? We'll do that one for the bit. Thank you, Casper. Yeah, man, a lot of people don't have work. David, what's up, man? Silver Air Patrol in the house. Well, it's good to see you. Yes, the ATC we were talking to before was a real person somewhere. Probably in quarantine. Tay Ray, I'm doing very well today, actually. Matter of fact, it's funny. My Twitch is on the bottom of the screen over there at I Am Blue Games. But it's funny because this time of the year in the spring, a lot of pollen is on the ground, right? I know you guys probably seen it, all the yellow crap is on your car, all that pollen stuff. Well, my nose really hates that. I'm one of those people, I don't have I'm not allergic to anything, but I do have allergies and I have sinuses, like an issue with that. So whenever it comes to spring and this time of the year, if I go outside, I start sneezing. I don't cough. But whenever I go outside, I start sneezing. I come back home, I start sneezing, and at night it's hard for me to sleep because my nose is all like congested and stuff like that, and it's really annoying. I hate it. As a matter of fact, I hate this time of year because of that reason. But because of that, I'm like trying to stay away from people. Not that I have like coronavirus or anything, and not that it's contagious because sinuses are not contagious. But the thing is, people don't know that. Everybody's so freaking out about, you know, the coronavirus and being away from people who are sick. It's like if I'm around people and I start sneezing or blowing my nose or sniffing all the time, they're like, what's wrong with him? It's the third time he coughed. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to stay away from people until my nose clears up with that. Thankfully, I don't work around a lot of people or anything like that. I work from home, so I'm usually quarantined anyways. But I'm feeling pretty good today. I don't feel congested at all. Yesterday morning I was sneezing a lot, but again, it's mainly just because of the pollen and stuff like that. So it's just funny. that all this is happening at this time of year. I'm like, well, I already usually get sick around this time of year, so that sucks. Captain Bumbo, so yes, this is X Enviro. Casper, I'm not sure what you're asking, but I stream from Houston, Texas, and I stream on Twitch and on YouTube. Twitch is at Iron Blue Games, and YouTube is Blue Games. So you can basically just search BLU Games on YouTube. You should find me, or you can go to youtube.com/Blue Games if you're watching on Twitch. No problem, Fairing fans. Do I need a train panel to play Train Sim? No, you don't need anything. All I have is a mouse and keyboard. I don't know about any of that fancy stuff. Where's our top of the descent? Dang, way over here. So we still got a bit of a ways to go. This really was not supposed to be a long flight. I was hoping to get a quick couple flights. United 10 has become a gold member. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, bro. Speaking of gold members, guys, I don't really talk about that a lot. You guys know I'm not big on asking you guys for money or donations or anything like that. I do appreciate it when you do it, but it's not it's not a huge deal here. But I will say, for those of you who have donated or mainly becoming golden members, which is if you go to the bottom of this live stream, if you're in certain countries, you'll see a big join button. When you click on join, it basically signs you up as like a monthly supporter of the Blue Games channel, and you're now a member. And what I call my members is gold members. So it's a joke. If you guys have seen Austin Powers Golden Member, it's kind of like, anyways. So I want to give back though, because like you guys have supported me, and I want to kind of give you guys something in return. So now I have hours of like bonus footage accessible to golden members only. All right, so if you become a golden member, you will get mainly it's like raw footage of flights that I never posted. I post basically everything I do: races, train sim, flights, everything that I do, like stuff that I just don't post as like a final video. A lot of it's deleted scenes, cut scenes, bloopers, extra. Again, like when we land in Atlanta, hopefully we make it that far. When we land in Atlanta, I will be recording multiple views of that. So obviously I'll show you guys whatever views you want to see on the live stream for free. But I'm also gonna record that and save that and repost it for the golden members to see it for the rest of their life. So that's what you get if you become a golden member. Again, I never really promote that too much, but there is a join button down below the video if you're watching, whether you're watching on mobile or on the PC. But thank you guys though for that support. I really do appreciate that. I'm constantly adding more stuff. I have like a freaking archive of hundreds of gigabytes and hours of footage and gameplay that you guys have never seen. And that's kind of what I'm gonna be using. I'm gonna be posting all this stuff for gold members. Now some of that will still go to Instagram for free. So like it's not like, you know, you're not gonna see anything. I just posted a video the other day on Instagram. So you're still gonna see stuff go to Instagram and all that, but just as an extra bonus for you guys to kind of show that extra bit of support. That's for you guys. Wait a second, you're right. No wonder we're going so freaking slow. Thank you, Daniel, for pointing that out. Oh my god. We have been going 255 knots this whole time, which is Mach 0.680. That's slower than a freaking private jet. Man, I am so upset at myself. No wonder we're going so slow. I'm like, why is this flight taking so long? All right, now we're freaking, yeah, Jesus. I can't believe I did that. What a rookie mistake. What up, F Firestorm 1000? Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. I do like trains. I do like trains. I enjoy them. They're interesting. They're mysterious to me. I don't know much about them. Ahmed, you live in Qatar, but you're from Egypt. Very cool, very cool. Why does my engine not have a spiral in it? Let's see. I don't know. Do I have a plastic toy panel to play train sim, or do you use just PC? I just use a mouse and keyboard, guys, for a train sim. I didn't even know people were using panels. I kind of was wondering about that because with flight sim, we have all this extra stuff we use. I have a joystick, I have a throttle. People use yokes. They spend hundreds of dollars on the extra things that they use to play flight sim. So I would assume the train sim community has something similar. But no, I just use mouse and keyboard. I don't see any purpose or reason for me to ever buy an extra panel for that. I have a wheel for my racing. I feel like that is necessary, but I don't feel like it's a necessary add-on for driving trains. Thank you, Fairing fans. I put a lot of thought into my camera angles. Why don't I fly a 747? Just not today. Show your flight plan. Yeah. Hold on a second. How do I feel about Swiss 001? Do I consider him a rival? No, I don't actually at all. David, I don't consider him a rival. I know of it. I know about him. I think we've talked sorta. Like I don't know. I think we've like, yeah. I think on Instagram we talked one time. But no, I don't see him as a rival at all. I don't know if he feels differently. I doubt it. He has like a gajillion more subscribers than I do, so I don't know. Tay-Ray does what costs money to download? This plane? Yes. If you're talking about multiplayer for VATSIM, that's free. I'm not sure what you're asking. And no, I'm not flying 747 today because we're flying the A321 Neo. I want to fly this Friday, but I wasn't able to live stream, sadly. So kind of making up for lost time today. I usually don't stream on Mondays either, but you know, with the Corona thing happening, schedules have kind of changed a little bit. Nick, my favorite plane is a 787. That is my favorite plane. Nick, the reason your train is like suddenly braking to 0 is because you probably went into the emergency brakes, and emergency brakes cannot be reversed until you stop all the way. So you got to make sure that you be careful more when you're braking. I know I struggle a lot in train sim with my brakes pretty badly. I fail a whole lot of missions because I go through the red signals. Thank you, Loadmaster. Appreciate that, man. It is. I agree, actually. Playing train sims actually is pretty relaxing. I'll do it from time to time, like in the morning, just to kind of relax myself. It's super slow paced, you know what I mean? But it's relaxing. It really is. I think that's why I like it. But flying can be relaxing too. Oh yeah, somebody wanted me to show them my flight plan. Let me upload it to Nightbot. Let me do that. That'll be easier. All right, I'm gonna do that. Now that we're actually going the right speed. Sorry guys, I'm moving the camera around way too much. Let's do one of these animated views that I have saved while I get SimBrief updated with the current flight for our commands. How are we doing on time? Man, we might still be able to make it to Jacksonville. We might. Okay, our flight plan is like super simple. It's Clutch 2, Flask, Aussie 1. So if you remember that, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Nightbot anyways, so you can have it if you want it. But give me a second while I update Nightbot with the flight information, and it's gonna be under !route when I finish. So let me do it right now. So we're left KID, and we're going to Atlanta. And there it is, submit. Alright, Nightbot should now be updated with the correct route information. Yes, I do use X Organizer, the Whisper. Matter of fact, I think it is extremely underrated. I put off getting it for the longest time. I thought it was pointless. I was like, I know how to organize my scenery. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, yeah, I got it. Like, I don't need that. Why do I need to buy a program to organize my scenery? Well, I got it eventually. I can't remember. One of my friends, usually this is what happens. One of my friends like talks about it and talks me into it. And I'm like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna try it. So I got it, and I don't know what my life would be without it now. That gets crazy. It's so helpful. I have so much scenery and plugins. I didn't realize that it also helps with plugins as well. So like if you don't want to, like if I want to do it, like today's flight, for example, I have a thing. I create a package called Next Flight. And so for today, I was like, I'm gonna be flying from Dallas to Atlanta, Atlanta to Jacksonville. So all I did was highlight basically the east coast of the United States, and that's it. So that's all the scenery that X-Plane has to load at all, period. Instead of loading the entire planet of like third-party scenery, like it's only loading just that part, and that helps a lot with load time and stuff like that. So very helpful. And then as far as plugins, I can turn off plugins there too and all that. So it's extremely helpful. I'm really glad that I ended up getting it. And we're talking about X Organizer for you guys who don't know. All right, if you go to ! route and flight, they are both now updated for our first flight today. Next camera. Yeah, definitely Whisper. Get it, man. You'll appreciate it. It kind of feels like a pointless thing at first. You're like, I could spend the same amount of money on a plane or some scenery, but it's very helpful. It's very helpful. Whisper is very easy to set up. It basically does it for you. All you do is you install it, you tell it where X-Plane is, and it will it'll find all the scenery, all your plugins by looking at your X-Plane folder all by itself, and it'll organize everything for you. It's super simple. Definitely in my opinion, it's definitely a must-have like thing for X-Plane. Once you when you first get XP11, you don't need it, but once you start adding on plugins and adding on a lot of scenery, it makes things a lot more easier to handle and organize. It's like if you have issues of like all the time with your scenery not showing up correctly, then this will be a big help. So thank you, Charlie, for bringing in the METAR for us for Atlanta. So it looks like winds are 100 at 8 knots, 7 statute miles, overcast 500. Okay. All right, that's IFR. Temperature is 12, dew point 10, altimeter 3036. Thank you very much. That is the METAR by Charlie. Yes, I do work. My full-time job is I am a graphic designer and a web designer. I actually edit a website. That's my part of my full-time job. But I work from home, which is actually very helpful because it allows me to kind of create my own schedule and also create my schedule of streaming around that. So I don't have to actually travel to work and in home. You know what I mean? So it's nice. It's really nice. I've been doing that for about, what year is it now? About 4 years, I think. Yeah, I think I've been doing this about 4 years. I've been doing this for 4 years. Before that, I did work in an office doing the same thing, but now I do it at home. It's been very busy lately. Whisper purchase, very nice, man. Enjoy that. Let me know how you like it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not an expert. I didn't make it. I'm not tech support, but I can tell you what I do know, what I don't. That's about the best that I can do. I can also update the second flight information too. What are some things I do to improve my frame rate? I usually just turn my settings down. The main things is turn off draw shadows. That hurts your frames a lot. You can turn down the amount of objects being drawn. That hurts your frame. Well, that actually helps your frames when you turn it down quite a lot. And if you need to turn off, definitely turn off reflection details. It seems to do nothing. So it's really good to turn that off. What else? Plugins, like you look at what plugins you have on. You can see me right now. I have SAM running, which is not really, shouldn't hurt us too bad. But I have heard that SAM does actually have some frame loss, but I haven't really tested that. Like right now, things that I could turn off to improve my frames are X and Viro. Right now we're getting 23. That's not good. That's worse than I thought. Like this, I'm not even using right now, but it shouldn't be affecting me. I can turn off some stuff that I'm not using right now just for the heck of it. Like we're done with better pushback. We're not gonna be using him anymore. Actually, we might. If we do a second flight, we are gonna need better pushback again. So I'll leave it on. Ground handling, we're not using him right now for that. Nimbus airports, we do need that. We're flying to Atlanta, and that's a Nimbus airport. Oh, plane just flew right under us. Where'd it go? Look at that. Wow, that is cool. That's traffic global, guys. Even has a contrail. I didn't know they contrailed. Let's see. I mean, we can turn off X Enviro and see how much that affects us, because people always say how bad it is. Let's see. We're at 25 right now. If I turn off X Enviro, let's see what happens. Well, first of all, ugly. I got a few frames. Why is this so ugly? Like, where's my default X-plane weather? Wow, that looks horrible. Jesus, where's the haze? That looks horrible. This looks nice. This is V States by Vertical Sim. It did help us though, didn't it? 28. Turn it back on. We lost 3. So I gained 3 frames, about maybe 3 or 4 frames with it on and off. How much did it cost me for my whole setup? That's a great question. I think about 2,500. I think everything I have, I got in a budget of 2,500. I turn traffic global off too and see what that does. Wow, I got worse frames when I turn that off. Jesus, what the heck? I think what's happening too is that I'm flying into a scenery heavy area. Man, that is not good. 22. I cannot promise a Ryanair landing, but they are they happen. They could happen at any time. I could try out this ground traffic stuff like Chicago, New Orleans. Really it. Everything else is all Tolis stuff. X-Pilot will leave that on. Python, I don't need that. Oh wait, maybe I did. No, I didn't need it. I don't know, it's weird, like now that I'm turning crap off, like it's like really not liking it. What is Gizmo? What am I using for that? Has it uses Gizmo? I might break something by doing all this. I hope not. Yeah, our frame rates are suffering. I feel like since I've been clicking on crap, it's gotten worse. And I might get kicked from, why is it getting worse? I think Atlanta's loading. That's gotta be what's happening. I think the airport for Atlanta must be loading in the background. And then just south of Atlanta too, I have Orbix True Earth Florida. So that could also be loading. And that takes a lot of freaking computer power. So I don't know. Who's gonna go with it? Kim Fan, what's up, man? Good to see you. Or KLM fans, welcome to the stream. Well, I used to believe that a XP11 couldn't run on a gaming laptop, but a friend of mine, Gio, proved me wrong because he plays XP11 on a gaming laptop, and it runs actually pretty well for him. I don't know his exact specs, but I do know that it is possible to run XP11 on a powerful enough gaming PC or gaming laptop. Nick Lim, what's up, man? What's going on? Whisper, what did you ask me? Let me see. Can you go over X Organizer and show how you have it all set up? I think I just have it default, bro. I think it's basically how I haven't really done anything custom, except make a few extra category things. Let me see. I can't open it right now because I'm flying. Whenever you're in X-Plane, it doesn't like it to be open because usually you open X-Plane using X Organizer, so it will organize everything for you when X-Plane starts up, and then it shuts itself down, and then you just open it next time you start up X-Plane. The only time you have it open or use it is right before you start X-Plane. But it should set up everything for you. It should. If you do have more questions, maybe hit me up on Discord. That may be the better way, honestly, to go over it and share. How long until descent? Great question. Not far, actually. Let's see. 22, 16, 10. About just under 50 miles, I think. Let's get our destination detail. Can somebody give me the METAR for Atlanta again? Flying over vertical simulations, V-States, Georgia. Like the next best thing after orbits true Earth. Cedric Yale, what's up, man? The A321 Neo, is it still on the org? I believe the JAR Design A320 Neo is on there. But what I have right now is the mod mixing JAR Designs and Tolis A321 together. So make sure you understand it. This I didn't buy this like this. I've owned the A321 by JAR Design since like forever. Like I don't even remember when it came out. Since I've had X-Plane, I've had it. And I just still had it in my store from years ago. So I was able to use the files from the JAR Design Neo and then merge it with the files for the Tolis. So make sure you check out the tutorial. I have links in the description, guys, if you want to try to make this 21 Neo. It's kind of complicated, but I recommend you watch the tutorial. The tutorial explains how to do the 19, but it's the same process for doing the 21. So if you have the A319, you can do it as well by Tolis, by the way. Andy Tucker, we're about to reach our top of the descent here. Thank you, Daniel, for the METAR in Atlanta. It looks like, let's see, wind 8 knot from the east, temperature 12 Celsius, humidity 88, pressures 1028, overcast at a height of 500 feet. That's going to be very interesting coming in. Activate my Ram air turbine. I don't know how. My favorite airline in real life is United. SG, what is SG? Alright, I'm gonna get I'll put this on the right screen. Let's see, performance. Next phase. Altimeter 3036, that's what I need. 3, 0. Why did it get dark? What was the temperature? Was 12. Let's see, 1008. And then decision height, I was gonna put 200 because I don't know what it is. That's a guess, guys. All right, our approach information is now in. Actually, go back to performance page. I'll activate approach later. All right, you can see our top of the descent is coming up, showing by the white arrow pointing down. Right after Aussie. And we also have our approach chart. I don't know if we're gonna be on it. Yeah, we are. So at Aussie, we need to be at, oh, okay, this ain't right. Landing east. Expect to cross 14. Which way are we landing? Alright, maybe we may be needing to expedite this. Let me see. That's not what I want. Alright, expecting 09 left right now. Where is it? Yeah, that's east, right? Yeah, that's landing east. Alright, so landing east, we should be 14,000. So why is it telling us to descend after? Landing west will be 12,000, so we need to descend now. Ahora. Ahorita. Oops, not that button. So changing altitude to 12. I'm gonna do 9 because we're gonna miss it anyways, and then we'll expedite the descent. The fast steeple signs will come back on. Oops. Thank you, Faring Fans, for the subscription, my man. Welcome to the Blue Arrow Arroyo fam, my dude. Looking good over there. Nathan, what's up, bro? What up, man? Good to see you. Oh, Singapore's SG. Yeah, I didn't know nothing about that. United for the win. That's right, Lowmaster. I like American Airlines. It's just not my favorite. I actually like them a lot. Like, if United wasn't my favorite, it might be American. It might be. I do like them a lot. I have a lot of respect for American Airlines. I also have a lot of respect for Delta. So, I don't know. I guess because I just know more about the company and how they handle them, you know. Let's go ahead and change this to OP. There we go. OP descent. We're at 30,000 feet. We're double as high as we should be. You can see on the chart it says 14,000. Not, you know, but for some reason it thinks that we're supposed to be descending after Aussie. So what we'll do, I think, is what does our flight plan actually say? Let's take a look. So we have Fries. We'll be going to the south one and then making a right for 09. So we should have enough time. We're gonna have a pretty long downwind leg, so we should still make it in a decent amount of time. But I want to get down a bit quicker. I could have probably put in here at Harry. I want to be at like 9,000 or even 10. So, do we have any other altitude restrictions though in here? Let's just say we want to be a killer by 9,000. Yeah, right now it says 20, so I'm gonna put 280. Wait, let me click on it first. So at killer 280. Actually, no, that's not right. 250. 9,000. Wait, I gotta do that one. Oh, shoot. Alright, 250 on the left and then 9,000 on the right. There she blows. Alright, return. Alright, so now you see that that's gonna be a bit more correct. Probably gonna say we probably need speed brakes too. Aviation Flower says you had the virus, recover from it in 2 weeks in the hospital, were lit. Wait, 2 weeks in the hospital were lit because you met some swaggers. What the heck? If that's true, man, I'm glad you're feeling well. Ace Flywings, what's up, man? Have I tried the MD-88? Yes, and I love it. We actually, last time I flew was in our Italian tour. I don't know, was it a few weeks ago? Alright, about to pass 18,000. I'm gonna go to, is it 3036, I believe is the altimeter out here in Atlanta. And apparently we're gonna have some really IFR weather flying in Atlanta. It's supposed to be like overcast 500. So that's like all the way down to minimum. It's gonna be crazy. So I was looking for the Caribbean Airlines new livery. Is it like the reverse one? Or maybe I didn't find it. It's like one with a hummingbird in the front instead of the back. Or is it this one? I've always liked the Caribbean Airlines style. I like their planes. Alright, what am I looking at the top control panel for, Nick? What are you looking for? I'm not pressing anything that's gonna ruin my flight. We are very late, guys. We should have been landed a while ago. I really am sorry for forgetting to speed up earlier. I apologize for us creeping through the skies like a snail at 255 knots. I really do apologize for that. Damn. It's like these little bitty bugs in here, man. I'll find the ram air turbine. I'm not pressing it. Yeah, I see it. There's a reason why it's covered. I don't need it. And we are diving right now. Jeez. Cover your ears. Clouds look nice though. I like it. I love this song. Uh-oh. Yeah, I think that Atlanta scenery is really hurting my frames right now. It's usually pretty good once it all loads in, but yeah. What's really annoying is that this is bug, right? It's flying around. It's like, this is whole room in here, yet you decided to be on my screen. I think it likes the light. That's gotta be what it is. I'll keep that in mind, Nick Lim, if we have some landing complications. Go away, go away, go away. Oh my god, I think it likes my microphone. Alright, we're looking good. Coming up on 10,000, and we're already at 250 knots. Plane is doing a really good job of catching us back up. I'm gonna change to... There's no altitude restrictions in this whole area, but once we pass that and get to our actual final, we'll be at 7,000 at Ryan, so we can take our time to get there. One thing I'll do again too, right before we make this turn, is I'm gonna get our airport diagram. I believe there's still no ATC out here in Atlanta. Matter of fact, I think we disconnected because our frames were so bad back there for some reason. If I can get back on. Thank you for the information, Infinite Leon. For all those who don't know, and I knew, but I forgot. I'm gonna be honest with you, I forgot. The ram air turbine is not used for landings. It's used during emergencies to generate emergency power in the event of a dual engine failure. FYI. All right, we're almost there, guys. Here's our airport right here. We're about to fly right over it, actually. And we'll be on turning on a right downwind, runway 09er left. I like this song too. I use this song in my Says in the Caravan video. Alright, speed brakes coming out. They're coming in. Yeah, be careful what you see on the internet. Alright guys, we're getting ready to land. I'm going to turn the X-Plane back up, and I'm going to turn the music back down. X-Plane is going to be pretty loud with this sound pack we're using today. Put my headphones back on and get ready to land. We have our altimeter set already. Again, we are really struggling on frames today. I don't know if it has anything to do with me streaming. I'm really debating right now on whether we should do this second flight, because I do actually have work I need to do. And I do plan on streaming again Wednesday and Friday this week, guys. So I'll be doing 3 streams this week. Let's go ahead and descend down to 7,000. Alright, Airport's gonna be at our 3 o'clock. We can't see it because it's under the clouds. It's overcast. But we will turn the land lights on. We're below 10,000. Man, it's getting a little bumpy too, man. That needs to go away. That is annoying. Thank you, Ahmed, for the good luck on the landing. Hopefully we do well. I always aim to do a smooth landing, but they don't always happen. Man, it's bumpy out here, ain't it? Ah, it's so annoying. Me and my wife have both been really annoyed by these little bugs. We don't know where they're coming from. We literally just cleaned the entire apartment. Like yesterday. It is squeaky clean in here. There's no reason to have bugs. There's no food laying around. Nothing. Yeah, man. Those engines look real nice. Real nice. Daniel, my favorite flight simmer. Huh. That's a great question. I don't know. That's a really good question. I haven't actually thought about that. I really don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. Don't know that I have a favorite. And no, sorry, I do not take song requests. I like these engines. I like these engines a lot. So I will mention though, in the future, I know that Tolis did say they are planning on coming out with an actual legit A321 Neo. It's not going to be like a mod. I think it's going to be a separate plane, which I have my feelings and thoughts about. I kind of feel like we should just, I don't know. It's probably going to be a slightly paid add-on. Like, we're kind of like with the 757 to get the modern avionics, you got to pay like $20 or something like that. It's probably gonna be like that, I assume. I don't know. I personally feel like we should just get it. That's how I don't know. I know you got to work on it and stuff, but I don't know. I personally feel like it should just like, if you already bought it, you should just get it for free. I think it should be a free add-on. If you already have the 21. That's just my opinion. But I don't know. I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think they're gonna go for that. All right, so we're just sitting for 7,000. We need to turn our right base, guys. Yes, I have thought about being a pilot. I think about it every day, and I will actually become a pilot. And oh god, we are getting knocked around. I'm trying to click on this button because it keeps. The wind is killing me. All right, we're gonna slow down. Speed rate's gonna come out again. Jesus, this freaking turbulence, guys. Alright, speed brakes are out. Auto brakes in medium. Brake fan on. Terrain radar on because we can't see anything down there. I'm going to activate approach mode. Confirm. And heading mode. Alright, we're gonna head to Humidity, and we'll catch the localizer for runway 09 left. When am I planning on being a pilot? ASAP. ASAP. Kind of see a little bit of land in there. I have this issue where my scenery around Atlanta, like my ortho around Atlanta, for some reason is not actually like coming in. So like it's default, but outside of Atlanta in Georgia, it's ortho. Alright, we are slow enough for flaps 1, or for the slats. So slats come down. And song, the music is coming off. I love this song, but I gotta cut you off. I gotta cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Alright, let's turn this X-plane back up. Alright, we're hitting approach mode. Actually, ILS button first. I always forget to do that. The ILS button, and there it is, and then hit approach. And we're actually right at 7,000 where we need to be. You see us on the chart right here, coming up to doohickey. That's what I'm gonna call it. We call it doohickey. And my speed down. Speed brakes are going away. What does it say? I don't know. Nothing important right now. Alright, did I miss my glide slope? Alright, we just caught the localizer. I think we missed the glide slope, guys. Let's go down to 5,000 and we're gonna expedite. Come on. There we go.
And southwest, traffic taking the runway 9 left. Here we go.
Alright, we have traffic taking the runway 9 left. We are 17 miles out. We'll let them know we're inbound. Atlanta, Hartsfield traffic, November 116 Bravo inbound for runway 09 left, 17 miles. I did originally for the speed brakes pre out. They're back in now. I was trying to get slowed down because we were trying to descend. I'm still trying to descend. Why are we not descending? We need to be at 4,000. Let's continue descending down to 3. Alright, I'm taking control. Cool. Of the autopilot. You see, the glide slope is way down here, so we're too high. 13 miles out, so we have some time to kind of correct, but not much. So that's one of the reasons I have my speed brakes out. I was trying to catch up with that. There we go, that's what I wanted.
So the 1583, 3,000 for 5,000.
Yes, this is a free head shake plugin. I think it's called Head Shake, something like that. But it is free, the one I'm using right now. I'm not using, was it XP Realistic or something like that? Alright, land lights are on, and check seatbelt signs are on. We're trying to recapture the glide slope. We're on the localizer. We're trying to capture the glide slope. The issue is, it's going to be basically IFR all the way to 500 feet, so it's very important that we are able to get down there. Things are huge. I just heard it. We're still high. In the clouds we go, guys. Moment of truth. Oh, not down all the way. No, I want you to descend at my rate, not your rate. Come on. What are you doing? Oh my god, I think I'm in the wrong setting. It's always confusing. This is the double dot or the one dot?
2,500.
Like, autopilot keeps trying to take control away from me. Alright, we're 7 miles out now, guys. It's getting sketchy. We might have to go around if we don't get down. Come on. Why are you descending at 700 feet per minute? I'm trying to get slower. Oh my god. Alright, another set of flaps. We're still high.
2,000.
2,000 above. This is not good. Come on, man. What am I doing wrong? No. I want you to vertical speed. That's what I want you to do. Okay, I think I had to click on the thing. We got a little bit of rain, a tiny bit of precipitation out here. If we're not at 2,700 by Vinny, oh, yep. We already passed it. Ooh, this is gonna be close. 4 miles, gears coming down. But we might have to go around. I'm expecting to go around. Alright, I see a little bit of the ground.
1,000.
I don't think we're gonna make it. We might catch it to the last second. We might catch it. Here it comes. Alright, look, there it is. Glide slope is in the green. Oh my god. 3 miles out. Gear is down and indicating
500.
500 feet. Cross check. Jesus, it's raining. It's coming down. Gear is down. We're proceeding, guys. Oh, I can't see nothing. Oh man, this is gonna be interesting.
100 above. 300.
Auto land, guys. What do you think?
Minimum.
There's minimums. All right, I see the runway. We're going for it. What is up with this? That looks weird. Looks really weird. Oh, there's a lag.
100.
All right, my controls. Oh, really? I thought we were coming down smooth. Alright, reverse is green. Wait, nope, that's not reverse. What is up with my scenery? Alright, 60 knots. Manual braking. Take exit left. What is up with my scenery? What's really going on here, guys? The important part is, did you die? No, you didn't. We're alive. And I don't believe what that said, 350. There's no way that was a 350. Okay, it was 350. We'll watch the replay and see how it really looked. But I thought that was going to be like a 200-ish. We'll take this exit right here. I'm wondering if this is X Enviro doing this. Where is my season? Hold on, guys. We're gonna figure this out. We're rolling backwards. That's not. Yeah, I have it off. Realistic, simple, realistic. Weather update, interval, real. Yeah, so that actually has nothing to do with X Enviro. Okay then. That is so weird. Alright, wipers on. Well, ignore the swamp on the taxiway. I know, right? Nice grass landing in the A320. The brake on? It is. And then we'll just find any open spot. Any spot will do, because it looks horrible. This has actually never happened. It's weird, because I actually loaded in Atlanta earlier today. And it looked perfectly fine. So who knows, man. X-plane problems. I'm going to park here. Spare us the horrible look. Alright, we'll put the flaps and all that stuff away. See if Sam still works. Reload the scenery. But it's not gonna have to like load. I'll try it. I'll try it right now. The good thing is we're at the gate, so if it crashes, it crashes. We made it this far. And Marshall's giving us the X. So we will shut the engines off and turn the APU on. Lane lights can come off. Runway turn-offs off. Taxi lights off. Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia, guys. You will all be tested when you walk out for the coronavirus. Daniel, how do you get the VATSIM iPad in the cockpit? You have it downloaded. You just have to basically download and install VATSIM to your X-plane, and then any plane that supports it will automatically have it in the cockpit. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate that, man. Sorry I couldn't have a smoother landing for you guys today. Not sure what happened there. We'll have to watch the replay and see. Is the flap open? Alright, it is. And then we'll watch it spool down. Thrust says either my CPU or my GPU is lagging. I won't be surprised. We've been having some issues with my frames today, which is kind of weird. This is not really a intense. It's not supposed to be a computer intense flight. It's supposed to be a pretty simple flight. Some basic ortho, everyday stuff. So kind of surprised that. What's going on with my APU? Okay, there it is. APU's on. We'll shut the engines off and we'll take a listen. And then I'll try reloading the scenery and see what happens. Cap Cheeseburger, what's up, my man? This is X-Plane. All right, engines are off. All right, let's attempt to reload. And we'll see what happens. Yep. And then we'll watch the replay. Because I refuse to watch the replay with green crash. So funny thing, my luck, this always happens every freaking time when I fly VATSIM. So remember how I talked about how Georgia or Atlanta Center was offline? Well, as soon as we land, they are now online. Approach and center is online. So my luck, hilarious. This happens everywhere I go. No matter where I go in the world, ATC decides to leave before I come and show up when I leave. So I am gonna go ahead and cancel that second flight, guys, because this flight took way longer than I thought. We've already been live for almost 2.5 hours and we haven't even watched the replay yet. So I'll be back on Wednesday for another flight. We'll probably fly, we'll see what I'm in the mood for, but I'm thinking of jumping back into Zebo, giving Zebo some love again. I haven't flown that thing in a couple months since I've been flying Airbuses, so We'll do that, or I'm kind of debating on flying a 757 or a 727 by FlyJSim. I think he just updated it. I don't know what he updated, but it's a great plane in general. I'm also thinking about flying some private jets or some GA stuff. It's been a while since I've done that on the channel, so we'll have to bring that back too. Yeah, ATL, man, ATL. Yeah, I love that song, Captain K. You're voting for Zebo? Can't go wrong with Zebo. We can't. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate it, man. Do I recommend ERJ 650 for a good jet? Thinking about getting it. Are you talking about the Legacy 650? Yeah. Yes, I actually do recommend it for a business jet. I like it. I think it's one of the better ones that we have right now. Yeah, for sure. I do recommend Legacy 650. I love it. I don't fly it enough. I don't. How long is this gonna take? This song is jamming, yo. I ain't gonna say. Captain Cheeseburger, my bad, I missed your comment. Yes. Oh no, X-Plane does not have multiplayer like by default. You have to get a third-party add-on like VATSIM, Pilot Edge, IVAO. 2 of those are free. 1 of those is paid. That's what most people are using to connect together. Matter of fact, the great thing about VATSIM is that you can have FSX, I can have X-Plane, and we can still fly together. It's cross-platform. Great. Zebo always has an update. That's the struggle with Zebo, is that there's always an update. There's always something changing. It's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is it's an ever-growing, living project. The bad thing is keeping up with it, and so I refuse to try to keep up with it. I fly it when I feel like flying it, and I fly the version I got. I'll probably update it though next time before we fly it again, and hopefully it doesn't break anything. Falcon 50 or Legacy 650 for a stream, that would be yeah. Last time I tried flying the Falcon 50 was on Pilot Edge, and I didn't know before I attempted it that apparently there was a radio problem that the Falcon 50 could not connect to the Pilot Edge radio at the time. But I would love to do it again. I like both of them. I do like both of them. I think Legacy 650 has a bit more detail than the Falcon 50. Definitely looking forward to the Falcon. Was it the 8X by Aerobasque? Supposed to come out. They said a year ago that it was going to be coming out early 2020, but you know, things always get pushed back. Things don't always go as planned. Zebo auto updater, that would be very helpful. Where do I get that from? Because I'm tired of like trying to re-download it every time. Honestly. Hopefully this thing won't take too much longer to reload the scenery. I mean, I don't know what all the scenery it's trying to load. Again, we're in Atlanta. I have Nimbus Atlanta, which is honestly pretty good on frames. It's not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's not that bad. All right, so that did fix. Thank you, HD, for the suggestion on doing that, because I really hated seeing that grass everywhere. All right, we'll stay offline, because there's really no reason to go online anymore. And replay time. How far back should I go? Yeah, guys, 500 feet. Overcast. Couldn't see darn near nothing. Alright, I'm taking my face off. Let's see. So we got a, what was it again? 300 and something? What was the landing rate it said? I don't believe it. I mean, I don't believe it. Maybe we came down a little fast. Maybe that's what it was. We didn't get the center line. We're a little bit off from the center line. I still don't believe that was hard as it gave me. I mean, even Project Fly gave me like a 355, 366 feet per minute on that, which was kind of surprising that Project Fly didn't even believe in me. Look at the dandelions in the grass. Kind of cool. I don't think I ever noticed that. Alright, here we go. You see the lights reflecting off of the clouds coming in. Oh, this is beautiful. The music. Alright guys, listen to the sounds though. I'm actually gonna shut that off. I want you guys to hear the sounds of this plane. We did bounce too. Really not as loud as I thought it was gonna be. I think I must have turned it down quite a bit. Otra vez. Probably won't be doing any long hauls anytime soon. I did want to do some of the Formula 1 tour, or some of the Formula 1 flights, but now that there's no season, I don't really know how it's gonna go. So we'll see. It sounds kind of cool from far away though, hearing the reversers. Let's do it from the inside view. We'll do left wing. Oh, there is the noise. There's the noise. Yeah, for these, you're right though. For these conditions, this is not bad. It's not as bad. I'm gonna go from the clouds. Here we go. So we were what? 500 above around here. Big Mingus, or Mungus, I'm always down for some island hopping, bro. Thank you, guys. Ah, that wasn't bad at all. And you know, this view right here. The cringe view. I also hesitated on the reversers because I originally forgot to hit the reverse switch, and so when I was spooling up on regular thrust, so I was actually speeding up. So that's why you hear it kind of like hesitate on the reversers there. Stutters. Every day. Thank you, Never Again, for the donation, my man. Appreciate it, appreciate it. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's right, any landing's a good landing as long as you can walk away and pay the bill for the repairs. Alright, we'll get one more. One of my favorite views, the belly cam. Yeah, it really wasn't that bad from the butt clench view. It wasn't that bad. Usually you can really tell when there's a hard landing, and we've had some hard landings. Alright, coming through the clouds, we go all the way back here. It didn't even look that rough from the wing view, so I'm actually pretty proud of that now. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe we came in a little fast, maybe was a reason for that. I knew it would be interesting because we're pretty light in today's flight. We only have 80 passengers on board and not very much cargo due to the coronavirus and whatnot. But, you know, I think we did okay. We did bounce as well, but you guys know if you've flown this plane, it loves bouncing. It loves to bounce. So it's kind of tough to get it to not bounce. I've done a lot of flights and I've actually gotten better with my landings. It used to be worse, but yeah, Q. I love Soul Plane, my favorite aviation related movie. Look at this. Did you guys see? I didn't even notice this last time. I love how like these, I don't know what these are. I'm not a mechanic. Whatever these wires and things are, they actually kind of like animate and move as you hit the ground. So I'm watching in slow motion. Here comes the slow motion. Pay attention to these areas on the left and the right. Imagine starting a Roblox airline. Oh God. I bet that exists. I bet you somebody, I bet there's a United Roblox virtual. A Delta Roblox virtual. What would you say? It'd be DALRXVA is their call sign. Okay, maybe this is too slow. There is. Oh God, there is. Hey, this is what I believe though, honestly. Get it where you can, guys. Like, not everybody can have a PC sim. Not everybody even has like Infinite Flight or X-Plane Mobile. Look at that. That looks beautiful, that tire smoke. If Roblox is your thing and you like flying, freaking start a virtual airline. Do it. Like, it doesn't matter where you're simming. Just do it, man. It's part of like the journey of trying to make this happen for real. Like, if you want to be a real pilot as well, or if you just want to be a hobby, whatever it is, whatever you enjoy, guys. I like this view too. I'm gonna get the last one, I promise. Okay, I don't promise, but I'm gonna do this view and we're gonna say bye. That's the plan. Thank you, Slammers21, for the subscription, and welcome to the Blue Arrow family. That's a little too far back. Let's go back a bit closer. Over the parking lot and threshold. Really? Huh? I've never played Roblox. I don't even know really what goes on there. Thank you, Atlanta West. I appreciate that. Look at that engine. Ah, it's so good. I'm telling you guys, it was a heck. I had a heck of a time trying to put this together. So, if for those of you who don't know, to make this happen, you gotta own. First of all, you need to own the Jar Design A320neo. You need to own the Tolis A321 or 19. So those are both payware. You have to already own both of those planes, and then you can actually take some files from the Jar Design A320 Neo, and then you put them into the Tolis folder and replace the engines of the Tolis engine. And you're basically, as I said in the beginning of the stream, Frankensteining a plane together. But there is a tutorial video on how to do it if you have what you need to make it. There's also a sound pack that you can use as well. So, you know, you know, at first I was like, I don't really know if I want to go through all that work. But when you see the final product, you're like, this is actually pretty dope. This is pretty cool. So, that is it, guys. That is it for today's live stream. Sorry we were not able to do the second leg to Jacksonville. I apologize for that. That was all my fault, completely my fault. Take complete credit for that. But I plan to be back on Wednesday as long as everything in my life goes as planned, and depending on how everything goes in the world too. I'll be back on Wednesday for our next live stream. Until then, I may be some videos that may drop between here and then. Who knows? We won't know. But guys, I just want to say I really do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for helping me reach 11,000 subscribers. The next big goal is 20. You know, 20,000, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. You know, never stop growing. That's kind of the goal. So never stop growing and continue enjoying what we do and enjoying playing games together and simming together and eventually flying a real plane. It's kind of the goal. But anyways, guys, you're amazing. Let me put my face back on here so you guys see. You're amazing. Stay healthy out there, guys. Stay safe. Stay positive. Yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy life. Enjoy your time off. Until next time, remember you have 3 choices, man. Give up, give in, and give it all you got. Peace, love, and God bless you. I'll see you guys next time. Next video. I'm out. Oh, that was perfect timing. Come on, baby. Oh my God. Thrust Setter, thanks for watching. Tay Ray, Macintosh, Amir, Never Again, HD Sim. Don't mind me. Atlanta West, Marshall TBH, Sim Pilot, Q, Captain K, Big Mungus, Never Again. I think I said you already. Ahmed the Gamer. Ghost Customs. Kadu, what's up? Ricardo. Charlie. Captain Cheeseburger. Daniel. Loadmaster. Infinite Leon. Larkin Google. Juan Veres. Sammy Montoya. Nick Lim. HD, I said you already. Sammy Montoya. Rest. Lex, Spec Life. Until next time, vaya con Dios.